Hey guys, tonight we travel back, way back, into a world where sleep is not the cozy retreat you know. It's the most dangerous part of your day. You lie in a crooked timber house where walls groan. The fire has turned to coals, and the dark outside seems to watch you just as much as you fear what it hides. The stars are out, but so are the wolves. Your stomach is half empty, your blanket scratchy, and the door? Let's just say it's more decorative than protective. You're about to fall asleep. If you're lucky, you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. I'm always curious who's up with me at these strange hours. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're walking along a muddy path, torch in hand. The air is damp. The cold has crept into your bones, and each footstep squelches slightly underfoot. Welcome to a nameless village tucked deep into medieval Europe, where the line between civilization and wilderness is thinner than you'd like. You round a corner, and your flame flickers as if nervous, just like you. There's no street lamp, no police station, no 24-hour diner with neon lights humming in the corner. Just a scattering of homes, mostly dark, mostly silent. Except the wind, it's always moving, whispering things you don't want to hear. The thatched roofs droop low, like tired eyelids. You duck under one and push through a crooked wooden door held shut by little more than a peg and some divine hope. Inside, it's warmer, sure, but the shadows still gather like gossiping spirits in the corners. You're not alone. A family sprawls across the floor. Mother, father, 2 kids, a granny snoring gently in the back. They don't have bedrooms. They have zones. Some are lucky enough to sleep on straw-stuffed pallets. Others curl near the fire pit, which is now just a halo of red embers giving off more memory than warmth. If you're lucky, you get a blanket that isn't crawling with last week's fleas. And even then, good luck sleeping. The world outside doesn't pause for you to rest. There's a noise, a low moan. Maybe it's the wind, or maybe it's something bigger, something breathing. Your eyes shoot toward the door. That latch, such a cheerful word for a piece of wood propped against the frame, is all that stands between your family and whatever's snuffling just beyond it. Wolves, sure, but sometimes it's men. And in the medieval night, those are far worse. See, unlike your cozy apartment, these villagers don't have locks, or cameras, or emergency hotlines. Just a latch and a prayer. Bandits are real, and so are soldiers who've run out of war to fight and decide the next best thing is to collect taxes from whoever's too weak to say no. You inch closer to the hearth, because warmth is armor. But even there, your back is exposed to the window, if you can call it that. Just a gap covered with oiled cloth or maybe a wooden shutter. Transparent glass? That's a luxury your descendants might see in a few hundred years. The floor creaks. A chicken pecks near your feet. Yes, a chicken. Because why leave the livestock outside when they're so much safer in here with you? Plus, they radiate heat. Bonus. You try to relax. You lie on your side. The scratch of straw beneath your skin. The blanket just barely covering your toes. The fire cracks softly, but each pop makes your heart leap a little. Are you being silly? Probably. But in this world, a silly fear is often just a foreshadowing of very real danger. It's said that medieval villagers rarely slept through the night. And who could blame them? Between the aching cold, constant noise, and sheer threat of existence, 8 hours of uninterrupted slumber was as mythical as a clean glass of water. Even the concept of a good night's sleep didn't really exist the way we think of it. Sleep was survival, not comfort. And yet, there's something about this room. Maybe it's the soft snores of the people around you. Maybe it's the predictable rhythm of their breath. It's a sort of communal heartbeat. One of the few things more protective than stone walls, shared humanity. Still, the fear lingers. You start to drift. When the torch outside flares suddenly, and then goes dark, someone or something has passed by. You freeze. The fire crackles. The wind pauses. Every noise in the room seems amplified now. The wheeze of the old woman's breath, the shifting of your father's boots by the door, the creak of a beam above your head that sounds far too much like a footstep. The medieval night is thick with real and imagined dangers. Some nights, the line between them dissolves completely. You've heard the stories of men who vanish in their sleep, of children taken by fairies, of demons that sit on your chest and press the breath out of your lungs. Historians still argue whether these tales were metaphors for sleep paralysis or genuine beliefs shaped by nightly terror. But when it's your chest that feels heavy and your breath that comes short, you don't really care which theory is trending in university halls. Maybe it was a deer, or a thief, or just the wind, but you're not opening that door to find out. You settle back in a little. Your eyes adjust to the dark. You can see just enough. The loom in the corner draped in half-woven cloth, the drying herbs that hang above the mantel like the room's own whispering ghosts, and the firelight dancing across the fur of a sleeping dog, curled tightly near the children. Here, sleep is no gentle descent. It's a negotiation, a risk. You remind yourself to be grateful. You have a roof, a family, a dog, and most of all, you're not the night watchman. Poor soul. Somewhere out there, wrapped in a cloak not nearly thick enough, he's pacing the village limits, squinting into the forest, ears pricked for twig snaps. Just imagine trying to stay awake when the cold whispers lullabies to your joints, and the wind keeps offering you one final nap. But you're inside. You're safer than most. Until tomorrow, because the torchlight doesn't always return. You blink awake before dawn, but it's not the sun that stirs you. It's the groan of the wooden latch across the door. It shifts in place, flexes slightly, as if something has tested it. You hold your breath. Everyone else in the room is still sleeping or pretending to. You can't tell anymore. In this world, you learn early that staying still might keep you alive longer. The latch creaks again, then nothing. Just the crackle of the coals, your own shallow breath, and the eerie quiet that follows the kind of moment you'll replay for the rest of the week. Let's talk about that latch for a moment. It's not a lock, it's not even close. It's a bit of carved wood jammed into a slot, maybe reinforced with a leather strap or two. If someone really wanted in, they'd get in. The goal isn't to keep the worst things out, it's to make them think twice, or make just enough noise to wake the house before anything gets worse than waking up dead. No one sleeps easy in a home without a proper door. In fact, no one sleeps easy at all. The structure you live in, let's be generous and call it a house, is mostly wattle and daub. That's a fancy way of saying woven sticks and dried mud, which, while charming in theory, does nothing to stop cold, wind, insects, or the occasional dagger. And while some wealthier folk might have stone walls, you don't. You have faith, fatigue, and maybe a pitchfork in the corner. Not much else. Not much. Every night is a low-stakes gamble with high-stakes consequences. And this isn't just your home. It's your entire world compressed into one room. You cook here, you sleep here, you give birth here, mourn the dead here, tell stories by the fire here. Sometimes, the stories feel closer than you'd like, especially when they involve the wandering dead, or worse, the living. You see, you don't live near a modern border patrol. There are no barbed wire fences separating your cozy hamlet from the chaos beyond. Borders are more conceptual than enforced. Villages like yours often sit between territories, between loyalties. Raiders, bandits, mercenaries with no current employer. They all see these places as opportunities. And guess what time they prefer to knock? Right. When you're tucked under that wool blanket, praying it's just the dog snoring and not someone outside planning how to turn your house into firewood. You shift again under the covers, careful not to wake the child next to you. He murmurs something unintelligible in his sleep and curls closer. His head is warm against your shoulder. It reminds you why you keep playing this nightly game, why you try to sleep, even when your gut tells you not to. It's not just danger you fear, it's the lack of control. In medieval times, your home isn't just your fortress. It's your only line of defense, and it's a poor one. A literal house of sticks. Most families slept in groups not just for warmth, but for protection. There's safety in numbers, even if those numbers are snoring loudly and smelling like boiled cabbage. Scholars still argue whether latches were actually intended as true barriers, or more as warnings, a sort of low-tech tripwire. Either way, their presence tells you everything you need to know about the level of threat villagers expected every single night. You get up slowly. Not fully, just propped on one elbow. You strain your ears. There's nothing outside now, but that doesn't mean the danger is gone. It could be watching. It could be waiting. Or maybe it was just a loose shutter thumping in the wind. Maybe you don't light another torch. That would only advertise your presence. Instead, you crouch near the door and press your hand to the latch. Cold, still secure, you leave it be. Instead, you do something odd. You whisper a few words. Not a prayer exactly, but close. It's a string of sounds passed down from your grandmother, who swore it kept spirits out. She claimed once it saved her from a revenant. You're not sure if you believe that, but belief is cheaper than a new door. Back under the blanket, you try to sleep again. It's not going to happen. You know this because your heart is still pounding. But maybe lying still will trick your body into rest. Sometimes that's the best you can ask for. You wonder what it's like to sleep in one of those grand houses, the ones with actual locks and guards. But then you remember that those people have enemies of a different kind. Poison in the wine, daggers under pillows, whisper campaigns, and midnight betrayals. Honestly, you'll keep your ratty blanket and faulty latch, thanks. Speaking of rats, you hear one skitter behind the wall. You remind yourself that rats rarely attack sleeping people, but they do like warmth. You wiggle your toes under the blanket just in case. They're not especially smart, but they are persistent. And in a house made of straw, persistence is terrifying. Then there's the other kind of intruder, fire. Fire, in the medieval night, is a constant threat. That hearth you rely on for heat? It's a hazard. One badly positioned log and the embers can catch on your only pair of shoes. Or worse, on the thatch above your head. There's no fire brigade, no sirens. If the roof goes, everything goes. You've seen it happen. You've helped dig through smoking ruins, trying to find a neighbor's chickens, or worse. Every time you bank the fire before bed, there's a decision to make. Too much ash, and it dies out. Too little, and it comes back to life like an angry spirit. There's no winning, just surviving. But back to the latch. You think of reinforcing it, maybe adding a heavier beam. But where would you get the wood? That extra log might mean less to burn next winter. And besides, there's always the chance that making the door stronger just encourages someone to come through the wall instead. Thatch isn't exactly burglar-proof. There's an old saying whispered by village elders, locks keep out the honest. And they're right. Most people don't need to pick a lock. They just need to want something more than you want to keep it. And in the middle of the night, when survival is cheaper than morality, a latch is just a suggestion. Still, you rest your hand on it again, feeling its shape. It's smooth from generations of hands doing exactly what you're doing. Checking, worrying, hoping. There's a kind of sad comfort in that. A chain of fear stretching backward through time, shared by everyone who ever laid their head down in a home with no door. Eventually, the sky begins to change. The deep black turns to navy, then bruised purple. A rooster crows somewhere. You hate him. He's always early. Or wrong. But you're grateful, because his voice means no one broke through the latch last night. You're still here. Your family is still here. You sit up, groaning a little. The floor is cold and hard, your back aches, and there's a bug bite forming on your ankle. You survived another night. Another, but just barely. You stand and push open the door. The latch groans in protest as if offended by your lack of faith. Outside, the mist clings low to the ground, curling around the fence posts like lazy spirits returning to sleep. You step out and stretch. Your joints crack. The dog trots up, wagging his tail. He knows what you know. Every new dawn in the medieval world is a victory. Small, quiet, but real. And the latch? It gets another chance tonight? You're barely awake. Your mind still half floating in that swampy space between dream and day when the howl cuts through the fog. It doesn't belong to your dog, or any dog. No, this is something bigger, deeper, hungrier. It comes from just beyond the woods, where the trees crowd together like old men whispering secrets. That sound turns your bones to reeds. You know exactly what it is. A wolf, and not a lone one most likely. Wolves are pack hunters. Where there's one, there are others, their paws silent on frosted leaves. their yellow eyes sharp enough to catch a flicker of movement in the dark. You feel their presence more than hear them. That's the thing about wolves. They don't always need to announce themselves. When they do, it's never for fun. You glance toward this pen. The goat stirs nervously. It's smart. Smarter than it looks, even if it tried to eat your sleeve yesterday. The chickens begin their morning shuffle, but they're exposed out there, in the lean-to, barely shielded by a few planks and blind optimism. You pull your cloak tighter and grab the iron poker from the hearth. Not much use in a real fight, but it feels good in your hand, heavier than fear. The wolf's howl fades into silence again. That's somehow worse. Now you don't know where it is. In the medieval countryside, wolves aren't fairy tale villains. They're Tuesday. You don't write songs about them because you're too busy reinforcing the fence. A single break in the enclosure, one gap in the flimsy perimeter you built with hand tools and prayers, and it's not just your livestock that suffers. It's your winter meals, your milk, your cheese, your income, you. Wolves don't just kill goats, they kill futures. You head outside, feet crunching frost as the sun tries to wake up behind a bank of clouds. The fields stretch outward like a rumpled brown quilt, rimmed with trees that never seem far enough. There's movement near the edge. Just a rustle. It could be a bird, it could be wind. But this morning, everything is maybe. Medieval villagers had to develop a sense of constant alertness. You too have that sixth sense now, the one that wakes you 10 minutes before danger does. Your ears twitch when a branch snaps. Your feet remember which floorboards creak loudest. And you've learned how to tell the difference between distant thunder and a growl just beneath the wind. It's not paranoia, it's tradition. Historians still argue whether wolf attacks were as frequent as the fear suggests. Some say reports were exaggerated, woven into local legends to scare children into obedience. Others point to court records, burial entries, and ecclesiastical writings that suggest otherwise. But the scars on your neighbor's calf don't lie. And neither does the story of old Joran, who once dragged her grandson off a wolf with her bare hands and a fire iron. You think about that as you patrol the edge of your meager fence. The gate holds. For now. It won't stand up to a determined animal, though, and you know it. No one has proper enclosures. There's no pre-cut lumber, no cement, no electrified wire humming with menace. Just wood, rope, maybe a sharpened stick or two. You head back inside, nudging the goat along. It follows, reluctantly. The kids groan as you usher the animal back into the one-room house. Yes, again. You tell them it's just for the morning, but you both know that's probably a lie. Living with your animals is one of the stranger daily realities of peasant life. During colder seasons, it's normal. The goat gives heat. So does the pig, if you're lucky enough to have one. Chickens, too. They peck at lice, which is horrifying but effective, and their body warmth helps you save on wood. Plus, in case a wolf does break in, it'll have to wade through 4 clucking alarms and one particularly stubborn billy goat to get to your children. You hear another howl, fainter now, maybe further. You breathe, just a little. You settle in for what passes as breakfast. Yesterday's crust, a scrape of cheese, a jug of water that might still have bits of something in it. The fire is stoked again, glowing a little brighter now. The danger is shifting. Morning brings different threats, but wolves still linger at the back of your mind like a forgotten debt. Your eldest child asks why wolves don't come into the village more often. You tell him something half true. They're scared of us. But really, it's the fires, the smoke, the noise. Sometimes you beat pots together if a pack is seen nearby. Sometimes you hang bones along the perimeter. Not because it works, no one's sure it does, but because it feels like doing something. You don't mention the winters when they did come in. There was one night, you remember clearly, when the wolves made it to the edge of the grain store. That night, you saw them not as animals, but as intentions. Silent shadows darting between trees, pausing at the edge of firelight. You thought then, they're testing us, just like hunger does. It's said wolves were once sacred to gods of war and night. The old stories tell of men who became wolves in spirit, devouring their enemies by moonlight. Some even believed certain children, born under strange stars, might carry wolf hearts inside them. You don't know about that. But you do know that a mother wolf will fight harder than any human when her den is threatened. You've seen that look. You've worn it yourself. The day drags on. You chop wood. You tend to what's left of the cabbage patch. You share jokes with your neighbor, who complains his rooster is too lazy to crow before dawn anymore. You pretend to laugh, but your eyes keep drifting back to the tree line. By midday, the tension begins to fade. The sun, gray and reluctant, has climbed high enough to bleach the fear. For now. But you don't relax. You know better. Wolves don't work on schedules, and they don't need night to strike. They need hunger. That's all. And hunger is everywhere. Evening returns like a tide, gentle but unstoppable. You pull the animals inside again. You gather the children. The fire is rekindled. Food is passed around. The bread is stale. The beans are softer than you expected, thanks to the pot being left by the fire all day. A small miracle. You latch the door. Then, for good measure, you wedge a stick through the handle and pile 2 logs in front of it. It won't stop a wolf, but it might buy you time to grab the poker, or wake the dog, or scream loud enough for the neighbors to arm themselves with rakes and farm tools. You lie back down. There's something inherently untrustworthy about the medieval night. It stretches too far in every direction. There are too many variables, too many what-ifs. But tonight, the goat settles easily. The kids breathe steadily. Even the fire seems less fussy than usual. Still, you lie there with eyes wide open. You think of a story your mother told you as a child. About a shepherd who slept so deeply he didn't hear the wolves until they were in the pen. She told it like a warning, not a tale. And now you wonder, was it even about wolves at all? Because sleep, in this world, is dangerous not just because of what prowls outside, but because of what it asks of you to let go. You turn over for what must be the 50th time. The blanket, if it can still be called that, is bunched around your knees. You tug it back up toward your chest, careful not to elbow the child curled beside you. The fire has gone quiet again, just a hushed glow beneath a coat of ash. You could stir it back, but that means moving. And right now, every muscle in your body is bargaining for rest. Too bad your skin is staging a revolt. The itching has started, again. It began as a tickle, a whisper on your ankle. Now it's an all-out siege. Behind your knees, at your wrists, crawling down the back of your neck. The culprits? Lice, or maybe fleas, possibly both. It's a nightly roulette of torment. You try not to scratch. You fail. The motion rustles the straw beneath you, which stirs up another problem. Dust. You sneeze violently. Someone groans in protest. You whisper an apology. Welcome to medieval insomnia. Not the kind caused by caffeine or doom scrolling. This is the primal, grinding kind. The insomnia of exposure, of noise, of hunger gnawing through your middle like a polite little rat chewing politely on bread crust. You close your eyes again. The itch moves to your back. You shift again. Let's talk about this so-called bed. The straw mattress is earnest. It tries. But the straw is old, packed down, filled with the ghosts of summers past and the current population of bugs who have made it their home. Sometimes, if you're lucky, there's a linen sheet over it. More often, it's just you, the scratchy bristle of plant stalks, and the hope that nothing with pincers is currently navigating your armpit. Medieval peasants had no concept of comfort as we know it. Rest was utilitarian. You slept because you had to, not because it felt good, and often it didn't. Sleep was another chore, like hauling water or emptying the chamber pot. You did it when the body gave out. And speaking of the body, it's revolting against you now in slow, miserable waves. Your stomach groans. Not loudly, but persistently, like a reminder that dinner was mostly hot water with floating intentions of vegetables. You think about bread, real bread. Not the hard wedge you gnawed on earlier, but fresh, yeasty bread. The kind your friend in the next village says the manor kitchen makes. You almost feel guilty imagining it. But guilt doesn't last long. Hunger overrides it. In the dark, with nothing to look at, you begin to notice everything your body has been trying to ignore all day. The scratches on your shin from the brambles, the blister on your palm from the axe handle, the soreness in your lower back that might just be age or the start of something worse. You lie there, inventorying your own decay. You'd ask for help, but help costs money. And prayers. And sometimes, a chicken. Healers, what few there are, don't make house calls in the middle of the night. And even if they did, what would you tell them? I can't sleep. That's like saying I can't breathe when the air is thick with smoke. Everyone's struggling. There's no luxury in sleep, no entitlement to it. Even the fire can't help you now. Its warmth fades just as your optimism does. And there's the smoke, too. It doesn't just rise politely up the chimney. That would assume you have a chimney. What you have is a hole in the roof and a prayer to the wind. Tonight, the prayer fails. Smoke pools near the ceiling and curls downward in slow, swirling eddies. You turn your face toward the floor, coughing quietly. You can taste the ash on your tongue. A sleep mask might help if such a thing existed. Historians still argue whether medieval people really slept poorly, or if our modern bias makes it seem that way. After all, we expect softness, darkness, silence, climate control. They expected survival. But even they had their breaking points. You reach yours when something scuttles across your foot. You don't scream, you're too tired for that. Instead, you sit up, swat the blanket, and stare into the gloom. Nothing. Just the creaking of the rafters and the shifting bulk of your uncle snoring like a dying cow. Rodents are a part of life. You used to be afraid of them. Now it's more like competition. You both want the same things: warmth, food, safety. Only one of you pays taxes. You lie back down and try a trick you once heard. Count the saints. You start with Saint Agnes, then Saint Balthazar. Wait, was he a saint or a wise man? You forget. Doesn't matter. You keep going. Saint Cuthbert, Saint Demetrius, Saint Elmo. No, not that Elmo. You chuckle softly, drawing a curious twitch from the dog curled beside you. At least the dog seems content. Maybe it's the fleas, maybe it's ignorance. Either way, you envy his oblivion. There's a knock. Not a loud one. Just a single thud, far away. Maybe it's from another house. Or maybe someone dropped a pot. You want to believe that. But now your heart is awake, fully. This is the worst part of insomnia. The moment when sleep almost returned, but something tiny chased it away. A sound. A thought. An itch. Now your thoughts are stampeding. What if the wolves are back? What if someone's hurt? What if tonight is the night the sickness comes? Plague stories still echo around here. Your grandmother used to tell one about a village where no one woke up. All dead. Quiet as ghosts. The only survivor was a man who'd been up late drinking and passed out in the barn. You wonder sometimes if that's a lesson or a coincidence. You shift again. The straw pokes at your hip. A splinter, maybe. You reach down, dig it out, toss it across the room. It lands with a soft click. Someone stirs. You freeze. Silence returns. You start making deals in your mind. If I fall asleep now, I'll get 4 hours. That's enough to haul water. Maybe. If I fall asleep in the next 10 minutes, I'll still be able to help with the sheep. Okay, what about just 1 hour? 1 hour and I'll stop complaining. 1 hour and I'll believe in miracles. Sleep doesn't care. It's a snob. You stare at the ceiling. A spider drifts lazily along a beam. You track it with your eyes, and for a moment, your breath slows. There's a rhythm to it. To all of it. The soft breaths of the children. The hiss of the fire. Even the creak of the beams has a cadence, like an old lullaby sung by a bored house. You close your eyes again. Not to sleep. Just to stop looking at things. Sometimes that's all you need. You hover. Half in, half out of sleep. Your limbs feel heavier. Your mind untangles just enough to drift sideways. You dream of water, of a bath, of soft linens, of eating without crumbs falling down your shirt. But then a cough slices the quiet. Sharp, wet. Your eyes snap open. It's the child next to you. Just a cough. But in this world, one cough is a prophecy. You place your hand on his forehead. Warm. Not burning. Just warm. You tell yourself it's nothing. You tell yourself he always coughs like that. You lie like a professional. Still, you watch him longer than you should, just in case. Eventually, your body wins. The weight of the day, the fatigue of thinking too hard, and the faint lull of a world not yet breaking down again. Your final thought before sleep is simple. Maybe tomorrow the straw won't itch quite so much. You wake up in the middle of the night, not because of a noise this time. Not because the latch shifted, or the goat sneezed, or your bladder demanded a moonlit stumble to the bucket. No, this waking is different. It's expected. It's normal. Because in the medieval world, nobody sleeps the whole night through. You've just completed your first sleep. This is a thing, by the way. Historians now know that in much of pre-industrial Europe, people didn't sleep in one uninterrupted block like we try to do today. Instead, they drifted into what's now called segmented sleep. 2 phases, split by a period of wakeful rest somewhere between midnight and cockcrow. First sleep and second sleep. You sit up. Your body knows the rhythm. No alarm needed. You're awake, yet oddly calm. It's like your mind rises to the surface of the day's murky waters for a breath before diving back under. The house is still dim, the fire little more than a heartbeat under gray ash. You don't wake the others. No one really talks during this in-between time. They just exist, quietly. Sometimes a parent might whisper a prayer. Sometimes a couple slips off for a moment of stolen intimacy under the cover of darkness and familiarity. But mostly, people lie awake. Not restless, but reflective. You shift to a sitting position and wrap the wool blanket around your shoulders like a shawl. The air bites at your neck. Outside, the trees sway in rhythms you can't hear but somehow feel. Your second sleep won't start for a while. You know this, and you're okay with it. This period, the gap between sleeps, is oddly peaceful. You don't worry about falling back asleep yet. In fact, no one expects you to. This is the time for thoughts, for light activity, for sitting still and pretending your life makes sense. You stir the fire gently, not to relight it fully, just enough for a soft glow. You see the face of your sleeping sibling turned toward you, cheeks flushed from heat, mouth slightly open. Across the room, someone else is already awake. Your father, perhaps. Or the old woman. Just a glint of an eye catching the fire's reflection, confirming what you suspected. You're not alone in this hour. Some people pray during this gap. Others mend things. One of your neighbors uses the time to check the traps he leaves in the woods for rabbits and foxes. You don't blame him. That's dinner if he's lucky. Tonight, you just sit. You think about your dreams, or the fragments of them. The one where your house is floating on water and the chimney has turned into a tree. Or the one where your teeth crumble like old plaster. Are these dreams trying to tell you something? Maybe. Maybe not. Medieval people believed dreams were messages. Sometimes from saints, sometimes from demons, sometimes from indigestion. It depends who you ask. One thing's certain. Everyone talks about dreams, even if they pretend not to. Historians still argue whether segmented sleep was biologically hardwired or simply a result of the environment. Cold rooms, flickering firelight, early nightfall, and the lack of artificial light. But when everyone does it, it doesn't feel strange. It feels like tradition. The house creaks as the wind shifts outside. You sip a bit of water from the clay cup near the hearth. It's tepid and faintly earthy, but it does the job. For a moment, you listen to the sounds. The faint gurgle of someone turning over, the wheeze of old lungs pulling air, the tiny hiss of a log as it settles into ash. You lie back down, not to sleep yet, just to rest your bones. You stretch your legs under the blanket and let the silence wrap itself around your thoughts. You think of your day ahead, chores, mending, maybe venturing into the next village for salt. You think of the path through the woods and whether the rains have made it passable again. You think of what it means to be awake when most people are asleep. This moment doesn't last long. From the corner of the room, your mother stirs. She's already reaching for her rosary, eyes closed, lips moving. You don't hear the words, but you know them. They rise and fall like breath. You wonder how many people across the region are whispering the same prayer at this exact hour. Maybe hundreds, maybe thousands. There's something oddly communal about this time, this midnight pause. Though you're isolated, you're also connected to others through shared stillness. A whole network of people breathing in syncopation between dreams. Outside, the night hums. Not loudly, just gently, like a lullaby meant only for those who listen closely. You curl into yourself, adjusting the blanket around your feet. Your skin has finally stopped itching. Or maybe you've stopped noticing. Either way, it feels like progress. And then quietly, gently, like a curtain falling over the stage, sleep finds you again. This is the second sleep. It's deeper, less interrupted. You slip into it as if down a slope of silk, no jagged thoughts to catch your heels. Your mind doesn't race, it strolls. The second sleep is sacred. Unlike the first, which feels like surrender, the second feels like reward. Your body understands now what's expected. Your limbs go slack, your breath slows, the world retreats. And this time, the dreams are different. They're calmer. They drift rather than crash. You dream of familiar things, faces you know, paths you've walked, a loaf of bread you once dropped in a stream. In this sleep, your fears do not chase you. They hover at the edge of the dream, like curious animals kept at bay by some unseen force. You won't remember all of it, but you'll wake feeling different. And when you do, the light outside will be real. Not a torch, not moonlight, but sun. You'll hear the rooster. The real one this time. Not the hallucination from the night before. You'll hear the shift of boots on dirt, the clatter of a bucket, the groan of the latch as someone finally opens it for the day. You'll rise slowly. Not rested perhaps, but refilled. And as you fold the blanket, kick the straw back into place, and brush your hair with your fingers, you'll think, yes, that was a good second sleep. At least, good enough. You blink into the morning haze, stretching your arms overhead, joints crackling like dry twigs. There's no glorious sunrise here, just a pale smear of light filtering through the oiled cloth window covering. The goat bleats softly from the corner, reminding you it's still an honored guest in your living space. The others begin to stir, groggy, grumbling, shuffling about with the weary coordination of people who've never known a mattress or a hot shower. You roll out of bed, if we're still pretending straw and cloth counts, and step gingerly onto the packed earth floor. The moment your bare foot makes contact, you freeze. It's moving, not the ground, not an earthquake. No, something on the ground. Scratch, scratch, skitter. You lift your foot and see it. A rat, bold as a knight, dashing across the floor like it owns the place. Because, let's be honest, it probably does. It vanishes beneath the loom in the corner, leaving only the echo of its tiny claws and your freshly reawakened sense of doom. Ah yes, the morning rat parade, a daily occurrence. You glance at your sister, who just shrugs. She's already busy checking the bread bin, which, as expected, has been nibbled during the night. Again. You sigh. Bread's expensive. Flour isn't always easy to come by. A rat's appetite is fast and cruel, and impossible to punish unless you happen to be a cat. But cats? They're working animals, not pets. You don't own one. You borrow one when needed. And honestly, the neighbor's Mauser has been slacking lately. Still, you soldier on. Because that's what medieval mornings demand. You shoo a chicken away from your sleeping uncle, nudge the coals back to life, and start boiling water. Not for tea, just to have something hot. Something steam-like to shake off the chill and dread. The rats are back. You can hear them again now, behind the walls. Scratching, squeaking, holding tiny rodent symposiums on how best to undermine your pantry security. This house is like a cheese plate to them. Every beam, every corner, every sack of grain is fair game. There are legends about rats, you know, that they carry messages for witches, that they can chew through stone if sufficiently motivated. One old woman in the village swears she saw a rat stand on two legs and pray. No one believes her, but you still avoid her house. Rats are not just inconvenient, they are symbols of decay, of plague, of everything teetering between life and collapse. And you? You're just one lost sack of oats away from collapse yourself. You head outside. The sun's higher now, casting a wan light over the village. You can see the trails they've left, the rats. Little footprints in the frost, tiny tracks leading from your house to the neighbors and back again like trade routes. You follow one out of morbid curiosity and find that it leads, unsurprisingly, to the latrine. Great. That's another area you'll now avoid without gloves and possibly divine protection. It's common knowledge that rats thrive where waste gathers, and medieval villages are veritable rat resorts. No sewage systems, no bins, just pit latrines and compost heaps in that one corner behind the smokehouse where everyone agrees to dump things and then never speaks of again. You head back inside to inspect the damage. It's worse than you thought. 2 eggs cracked open. 1 partially eaten heel of bread. A gnawed candle. Yes, a candle. Because even when food is scarce, rats will still sample your tallow just to mock you. You mutter a few very mild curses. Nothing scandalous, just enough to feel better. Your mother joins you, tying her hair back with a frayed ribbon. She sees the mess, sighs, and starts gathering the remains. "We need traps," she says. You both know this is a lie. Traps don't work. You tried once. Crafted them from wooden wire. Caught 1 rat. It chewed off its own leg and still escaped. Now it lives in legend. A 1-legged rat you call Old Gimpy. He's become a household figure, half mascot, half nemesis. You decide to set out the peppermint sprigs again. Some say the scent repels them. Others say it just gives the rats a lovely breath before they eat your grain. Either way, it gives you hope. And hope is harder to come by than mint. Later, while gathering firewood, you see it again, movement beneath the kindling pile. This one doesn't run. It just stares. A rat watching you. It doesn't blink. Its eyes reflect the light like wet black beads. There's something uncomfortably intelligent about it, as though it knows this battle is long and pointless, and it has already won. Historians still debate the full extent of rat infestations in rural medieval homes. Some claim the problem is exaggerated by modern standards. After all, if you live with something long enough, it stops being a crisis and becomes a feature. Others argue we downplay it, ignoring how these infestations contributed to sickness, stress, and famine. You know the truth lives somewhere between. By midday, the damage has been managed. Sort of. You've secured the remaining food, stacked the firewood higher, and encouraged the goat to poop in a more predictable area. You eat a lunch of porridge and dried onion slices, seasoned with a few extra chews to make it feel like a meal. And the rats? They're gone, for now. They return in the evening, of course, they always do. It begins with that faint scratching again, this time from the rafters. You look up and see the shadow of one, silhouetted against the dim glow of the hearth. It perches on a beam, tail flicking, nose twitching. You throw a boot, you miss. It doesn't even flinch. There's a strange respect in the room now. A quiet understanding between humans and vermin. You may share the same space, but not the same rules. You tuck in for the night, wrapping your feet carefully to protect your toes. You've heard stories. Some say a man once lost a digit to rats nibbling in his sleep. Others say that's a myth, designed to keep children from sleeping with food in bed. You're not taking chances. As sleep pulls you under, you whisper a last half-joking plea. Let the rats be bored tonight, because honestly, you could use a dream that doesn't have whiskers. You're not awake, but you're not exactly asleep either. You're somewhere in between, floating just below the surface of consciousness when it begins. At first, it's just a heaviness on your chest, like someone has laid a damp wool cloak across you. You try to move, but your limbs have turned into stones. Your eyes strain open just barely, and in the dim flicker of dying firelight, something shifts in the rafters. Something that wasn't there before. A figure, but it doesn't move like a person. It drips, melts, spreads across the ceiling beams like shadow-turned liquid. You try to scream, but your throat tightens. No sound comes out. The pressure on your chest grows, and now it feels like hands, bony, freezing hands, pressing you into the straw. You're dreaming. You must be. Or maybe you're not. Because in the medieval world, there's a name for this. A demon sitting on your chest. It's not just superstition. It's cultural consensus. They call it the Mara in the north, the Alp in Germany, the incubus or succubus in more devout Christian regions. Whatever its name, the result is the same. Paralysis, dread, the weight of evil visiting you in your most helpless state. You finally jerk awake, gasping like someone who's just surfaced from deep water. The pressure vanishes. The shadows go back to being shadows. The room is quiet again, but your heart doesn't calm. You're not alone. No one else is awake, but the air is heavy. Not just from smoke or sweat, from fear. From the lingering sense that something saw you just now, something old and patient, waiting for the wrong prayer or the right weakness. You sit up and pull the blanket around your shoulders like armor. You're shaking. Your mother warned you about dreams, told you to sleep facing east, said never to go to bed angry, never to fall asleep with your mouth open. That's how the bad ones get in, she said. Through your breath, through your teeth, through your tongue. Ridiculous, right? Except now you keep your lips tightly closed. Medieval people feared dreams more than we do, because they believed they were more than just brain static. They were messages, omens, sometimes battles. The line between the spiritual and the physical was paper thin. And sleep? That was a crossing point. You remember a story from the last village, a boy who screamed every night at the same hour. His parents claimed he was being tormented by a demon. They called in the priest, blessed the bed, hung rosemary and garlic from the ceiling beams, burned herbs. He still screamed. Then one day he stopped. He didn't wake up. Was it sickness? Possession? Bad dreams gone too far? Historians still argue whether such episodes were signs of trauma, sleep disorders, or just the body collapsing under medieval living conditions. But the villagers? They didn't argue. They buried him with his mouth sewn shut, just in case. You lie back down, too tired to stay upright, but too wired to close your eyes again. Every flicker of the fire becomes a figure. Every creak of wood becomes a whisper. You clutch the blanket, then reach beneath it for something else. A small charm. It's crude, just a bit of bone tied to a string, but it's meant to ward off bad dreams, or at least distract them. Your grandmother said demons are easily confused, that if you give them something to count or play with, they'll forget to torment you. You hope she was right, because the truth is, you're terrified of your own mind. Not because it's broken, but because it's honest. Your dreams remind you of things you try not to think about during the day. The baby you lost last winter, the neighbor boy with the sunken eyes, the soldiers you saw dragging that screaming man toward the edge of the woods. And sometimes, just sometimes, your dreams feel too real. Like you're not visiting them, but they're visiting you. You whisper a small prayer, not from a book, just something your father used to say. 4 lines, rhyming, easy to remember, even when you're half asleep and fully terrified. Guard my soul until the dawn, let no spirit lead me wrong. Keep my heart from evil's breath, shield my dreams and fend off death. You say it again, and again, like counting sheep, but darker. Eventually your body gives in. Sleep returns. Slower this time. It tiptoes in, wary of what happened earlier. Your dreams don't stop. This time, it's a forest. Twisted trees. No path. You're searching for something. Someone. The leaves whisper your name, but in a voice that isn't yours. You run, you fall, you wake. Again, the fire is ash now. The room smells of damp wool and smoke. You're shivering. You roll over, your back to the room, as if that will protect you from whatever prowls in dreams. The blanket feels thinner now, the floor colder. You hear your sister muttering in her sleep. Then silence. Then something else. Footsteps? No, can't be. Everyone is asleep, but you don't turn around. You don't want to know. Sometimes knowing is worse. Eventually the dark fades, slowly, grudgingly, like it's reluctant to leave. You sit up at dawn, your eyes puffy, your bones heavy. You don't speak of what you saw, or what you think you saw, or what saw you. Because if you say it out loud, it becomes more than a dream. And some things should stay unspoken. That morning, your mother sprinkles salt around the door. Just a pinch, just in case. She doesn't say why, she doesn't have to. Later, in the village square, you overhear others. Whispers about dreams. About a girl who woke up clawing at her throat. About a man who refused to sleep indoors now. About someone who started speaking in tongues after a particularly long second sleep. You don't join the conversation, you just listen and confirm what you already know. You're not the only one. The medieval night isn't just dangerous because of what it hides. It's dangerous because of what it reveals inside your own head. And the worst part? You have to do it all again tonight. The goat sneezes in your face. That's how your morning begins again. Warm breath, followed by a damp snort that lands squarely on your cheek. You groan, wipe your face with the corner of your blanket, and try not to take it personally. After all, the goat didn't ask to be here any more than you asked to share your sleeping space with it. But here you both are, side by side, like 2 reluctant roommates in a 1-bed studio apartment with no door and a vermin problem. You sit up, careful not to disturb the chicken nesting by your knee. She lets out a soft cluck, as if annoyed by your movement. The piglet, small but already round, snores in the far corner, its body half buried in old straw. A dog sprawls across the threshold like a very hairy rug. twitching occasionally in a dream that probably involves chasing rats or chewing on your sandal. Welcome to the true medieval sleeping arrangement, the family pile. But it's not just people. It's everyone. Man, woman, child, goat, pig, chicken, sometimes even a sheep. All under one roof. All sharing heat, air, and far too many smells. You sigh, scratch the side of your neck, and scoot closer to the hearth, now just a ring of ash and faintly glowing wood chips. The air is sharp. Your breath clouds in front of you. The animals are your central heating system. Unwieldy, loud, smelly, but undeniably effective. This is the reality of peasant life. Not romantic cottages with flower boxes and cozy fireplaces, but homes where everything lives indoors, because outside is a death sentence. Or at least an invitation to be stolen, eaten, or frozen solid. Historians still argue how widespread this exact arrangement was. Some say animals were kept in lean-tos or adjacent sheds. Others point to plenty of records showing livestock actually in the dwelling, especially during the winter months or in smaller homes. Either way, the outcome is the same. You go to sleep with hooves in your ear and wake up with feathers in your mouth. It's not charming, it's survival. You shuffle across the dirt floor and pour a bit of water into a bowl. The goat follows, hopeful. You nudge it away. It bleats in protest. You both know who's actually in charge here. Your sister starts to stir now, tossing a blanket over her head to block the morning light, or perhaps the smell, because let's be honest, it's not pleasant in here. Between the smoke-stained rafters, the mildew creeping in from the thatch, and the aroma of multiple animals doing what animals do, the air is less fresh meadow and more compost in a sauna. Still, there are benefits. Warmth, for one. A human body gives off roughly 100 watts of heat. A pig? Even more. When you pack 6 or 7 bodies, human and otherwise, into a tiny room with no insulation, you create a sort of living furnace. No need for extra firewood when you've got a pile of biological radiators snoring gently beside you. And then there's safety. Outside, wolves prowl, thieves skulk, the weather rages. But inside, packed together, you are a herd. And herds don't go down easily. If something breaks in, it's met with hooves, teeth, claws, and maybe even a half-awake grandmother swinging a soup ladle. But the real trick? Not getting trampled. Last week, the pig rolled onto your cousin's leg in the night. He woke up screaming. Thought it was a demon. Turned out to be just 70 pounds of pork trying to find a warmer spot. The swelling went down eventually. You still tease him about it. As you begin your morning routine, scraping the hearth, brushing straw from your tunic, trying not to step in anything you can't identify. You can't help but laugh softly. This is your life. Ridiculous, filthy, loud, and yet somehow functional. You remember a story the village storyteller once shared of a noblewoman who refused to allow animals into her chambers. She died of frostbite in her sleep during a sudden winter storm. Meanwhile, the servants and their pigs stayed warm in the kitchen. The lesson? Pride doesn't heat your toes. Pigs do. Outside, the rooster crows. The real one. Not that useless bird 2 houses down that crows at midnight and again at lunch. Yours is reliable, loud, arrogant, a true feathered alarm clock. You throw open the wooden shutter to let in light, and the chicken instantly bolts for the door. You don't stop her. Let her get some fresh air. You would if you could. The goat tries to follow, but you block it with your leg. Not yet, you mutter. There's something to be said for routine. Even in this chaos, you have patterns. Predictable rhythms. You know which animals snore, which ones steal your bedding, which one, despite its innocent face, once tried to eat the soap. Soap, you laugh. As if that makes a difference in this barnhouse masquerading as a home. Still, there are small comforts, like the way the dog curls around the baby, offering fur in exchange for trust, or the gentle thrum of the pig snoring that almost sounds like a lullaby, or the way the children whisper to the goat before falling asleep, as if sharing secrets with a horned guardian. These creatures are not separate from your family. They are your family. You're all in this together. One big, sneezy, smelly, snorting tribe. But of course, there's the dark side. Diseases don't care about how close you feel to your animals. In fact, they count on it. Living in such proximity means more than shared warmth. It means shared illnesses. You've seen it before. A cough in a pig turns into a fever in your brother. A sick chicken means 2 weeks of vomiting for everyone. There's no such thing as just a cold here. Every symptom is a gamble. You try not to think about that as you gather eggs, careful to avoid the nest with the spiderweb. That one's been claimed, and you're not interested in starting a war with the arachnid who lives there. The day drags on. The animals return to the house as night falls again, as expected. The goat claims its corner. The pig flops near the door. The chicken nestles into the straw. You light the fire, pass around the last loaf, and settle in once more. Tonight, the air is particularly rank. The dog has rolled in something unspeakable. The pig is unusually gassy, and you're starting to question your life choices again. But you tuck the blanket under your chin, adjust your feet so they don't touch the pig's haunches, and accept your fate, because no matter how much you itch, cough, or gag, you'll sleep. Eventually, with a goat watching over you like a judgmental roommate, you wake not from rest, but from sound. A great crack, sharp as a whip, echoes across the night. You jolt upright, heart hammering. The others stir, some muttering, some groaning, one child crying already before they're even sure why. And then it hits. A roar. Not human, not animal, but skyborn. Thunder. It doesn't roll in gently. It explodes. The rafters shake. The clay bowls clatter on the shelf. You flinch, instinctively checking the goat beside you as if its soft bleat might offer explanation or comfort. Another flash. This time a flickering white light that turns your modest home into a skeletal sketch of itself. All crooked beams and wide-eyed faces. A storm. A real one. You don't need any fancy almanac or weather vane to know this is going to be bad. You feel it in your bones. In the charged air that crackles around your ears like fire about to speak. The dog whimpers and wedges himself farther beneath the pallet. The pig doesn't even try to move. Smart, really. Your thatch roof groans in protest, wind clawing at it like angry hands. The sound of rain arrives next. Not a gentle patter, but an assault. Each droplet strikes like it's been hurled by an angry saint. It slams into the roof, into the walls, into your nerves. Then the leak starts. Of course, it begins in the usual place, just above the hearth. One steady drip, then 2, then 3. The bucket's already there because you expected this. You always expect this. No one in a thatched house trusts the sky not to come crashing through once it gets angry. You scramble to place another pot under the new drip by the wall. You know that one's trouble. If enough water gets in, the whole panel will soften, and then you'll be on your knees at dawn packing in more mud, more straw, more lies to hold the world out. Someone curses, mildly, sleepily, like they do this every week, because they do. Rainstorms in the medieval world aren't just unpleasant, they're existential. You don't have insurance. You don't have backup housing or storage units. Your entire life is under this roof. If it collapses, so do you. Historians often marvel at how much repair was a part of medieval life. Roofs in particular were a constant chore. Thatched bundles had to be replaced or patched regularly. Whole village days were devoted to re-roofing, with neighbors pitching in because they knew their turn would come soon enough. And still, when a real storm hit, no one felt ready. You check the walls. Damp already. Not quite bleeding water, but sweating with it. And it's cold. Storms don't ask permission to arrive in spring or summer. They hit whenever they please. You wrap yourself tighter in the blanket. The baby has started fussing, and someone shushes them with a lullaby so old it sounds like moss singing. It helps. Barely. Another thunderclap, closer this time. You count. 1, 2, 3. Then the crack, right overhead. The dog howls, the pig squeals, and for a moment, even the fire flinches. Lightning frightens more than just animals here. It's divine, people say. A message, a punishment, a cleansing. You remember stories of churches struck down because someone lied during confession? Of barns burning because the farmer cursed his crops? You know better now, maybe, but still, you whisper a quiet apology for every bad thought you had this week. Just in case. Your father rises and props a board against the northern wall where the wind's pushing the hardest. It'll hold, probably. You start laughing, not from joy, but from absurdity. You're wet, cold, tired, and increasingly aware that your blanket now smells like goat pee. No one stops you. In fact, your sister joins in, her giggle rising through the storm until it's swallowed by another peal of thunder. Because what else can you do? Sleep is impossible now. The room is alive with tension. Every corner has a drip. Every creak could be the roof giving in. You all sit, silently, side by side, wrapped in wet cloth and shared dread. And then something new, a smell, smoke. You jump to your feet. Not the pleasant kind of hearth smoke. This is sharper, acrid. The fire's been smoldering too close to the wet cloth hanging above it. The steam has been replaced with a thin, hissing smoke that coils upward toward the beams. You grab the pot of water and douse it instantly. Sizzle, steam, silence. Disaster averted. This time, you slump back down, shaking. Between the sky and your own hearth, you're beginning to wonder who wants you dead more. The goat burps. You're not sure whether to laugh or cry again. You're not alone in this, though. You remember stories from the old man at the far edge of the village. The one who says he survived the storm of 72, where 6 roofs were ripped clean off and a cow was struck by lightning mid-chew. The way he tells it, the cow glowed like a lantern. You used to think that was an exaggeration. Now, you're not so sure. Historians still debate whether such storm stories were embellished for drama or grounded in truth. But you know how vulnerable these buildings are. You've felt the wind probe each seam of your walls like a thief looking for the weakest lock. And tonight it feels like the thief brought friends. Hours pass. Slowly, the storm begins to die. Not with grace, with exhaustion. The thunder wanders off into the hills. The rain slackens to a drizzle. The wind retires to wherever wind sleeps. You don't, though. Not yet. You and the others sit, waiting. As if movement might invite the storm back. Eventually, your mother starts humming. Not a song, just a rhythm. A heartbeat for the room. The fire is revived. The pot is reset. Damp clothes are wrung out and hung again. You lie back, your spine curved around the spot you've carved into the straw over months of repetition. You pull the blanket up. It's damp, but warmer now somehow. You close your eyes. The wind might return. The roof might leak again. But for this brief moment, you're dry, alive, and still under something that resembles shelter. It's enough. You wake to bells. Not the cheerful kind you imagine ringing through some sun-kissed meadow. No, these are low, deliberate chimes echoing from the monastery on the hill. They cut through the fog like a judgment. One beat, then another. Measured, ancient. As if time itself is being chopped into solemn pieces. You groan softly and roll over. It's still dark. The fire has given up again. The pig, thankfully, has not rolled onto you this time. Small victories. But the bells keep tolling and they aren't for you. Not exactly. They're for the monks. You see, in this time and place, not everyone follows the natural rhythms of sun and moon. Some people live by the rule. The monastic rule. A strict, orderly life dictated by divine schedule and reinforced with prayer bells, Latin chants, and a schedule that would make a rooster file for retirement. They rise in the middle of the night, often before even the wolves have tucked themselves in. This particular bell? That's the nocturnes, or matins, depending on who's in charge and how precise they want to be. Either way, it's the second or third time the monks have woken up already. They sleep in bursts, short, staggered stretches between services. 7 times a day and just as many through the night if they're especially pious or especially miserable. You imagine them now, thin silhouettes moving silently through cold stone corridors, cloaked in wool, gripping candles, mumbling prayers with cracked lips and hollow eyes. You don't envy them, not really, except maybe a little. Because while your roof leaks, their ceilings are vaulted. While you share your bed with livestock and lice, they have small, single cots and dedicated bedding. While your prayers are mumbled in the dark, hoping no one hears, theirs echo off centuries-old arches, directed straight into the ears of the divine. They sleep less, but somehow they rest more. Maybe it's the ritual, the sense of order, or maybe it's the chant. Gregorian chants, they say, can soothe the soul. Monks sing them in the dark, voices rising in unison, not to entertain, but to anchor. You've never heard the full sequence, but sometimes, when the wind is right, you catch fragments drifting down the hill to the village. Latin phrases you don't understand but somehow feel. The way you feel thunder in your ribs, or a lullaby in your spine. Even now, through those wooden slats and cloth-covered windows, you can hear the faintest echo. A slow, sonorous hum. No instruments, just breath and echo. It wraps around you like fog. And you wonder, how do they do it? How do they sleep in snatches, then wake with purpose? You barely survive a single night without ghosts and goat burps. They wake for prayer, not panic. But then again, they're not entirely safe either. You've heard the stories of monks who sleep too long and miss prayers, punished by fasting or worse. Of novices who whisper in the dormitory after dark and are sentenced to icy penance, bare knees on cold stone. Of the elder brother who wandered outside after Compline and never returned, only a smear of blood near the orchard gate, and a silence that's never been filled. Monasteries are holy places, but holiness isn't safety, not here. And inside those cold cells, they face their own demons. Not the tooth and claw kind you fear, but the quiet ones. Doubt, desire, despair. The ones that don't rattle latches but whisper to you during vigils. Some monks write about it. You've seen the fragments in the chapel's back room, where Brother Anselm lets you dust the scrolls. One line stays with you. The devil waits not in fire, but in the pause between bells. That hits, doesn't it? Because even structured sleep doesn't guarantee peaceful dreams. Still, there's envy. You won't lie. You picture a monk now, maybe your age, waking as the bells toll. He sits up, rubs his face, pulls on his robe. The air is freezing. The candle barely stays lit, but his movements are calm, rehearsed. He walks down the cloister, past the stone saints, and into the chapel, where others wait. Silent, breath visible, hands folded. They chant, they pray. They return to sleep in rotation. And you? You lie here, tangled in limbs, with a chicken gently pecking your hair, wondering if the roof is still holding and whether the rat behind the firewood is pregnant again. You sigh. Maybe the bells are a blessing. At least someone else is awake with you, even if they're half a mile away and chanting in Latin. Your uncle stirs beside you. He mutters something about soup and rolls over, pulling the blanket with him. You yank it back and settle again, listening. The bells are fading now, their final toll echoing across the hills. You're not expected to follow them, not unless you're one of the robed and silent. But still, they mark your night. A reminder that time moves forward, even in darkness. That not everyone sleeps like you. Some divide the night into sacred chunks, offering up rest like sacrifice. Historians still debate whether the monastic sleep schedule was more or less healthy than the peasants', short bursts versus segmented blocks. Some say the repetition of prayer and posture actually helped monks maintain clarity despite sleep deprivation. Others believe it slowly wore them down, contributing to early death, hallucinations, or worse. But for you, it's not about health, it's about meaning. The idea that someone, somewhere, is waking on purpose. Not from fear, not from a leaky roof, or a rat in the grain sack, but because they want to. That's oddly comforting. The rest of the house begins to shift now. Someone coughs. A log rolls in the hearth. The goat lets out a long sigh, a comically human sound of exhaustion. You close your eyes again. Sleep comes easier now. The bells did their work, not by waking you, but by reminding you that even night has structure, that even darkness has rhythms. And maybe, just maybe, tomorrow you'll ask Brother Anselm what those Latin words mean. Maybe they'll make sense of your dreams, or at least give you something to whisper when the next storm knocks. It's the smell that wakes you first, not the earthy funk of wet goats or the peppery sting of smoke. No, this is worse. It rolls in heavy and sour like something alive that died, had second thoughts, and decided to hang around anyway. You gag before your eyes even open. Then comes the realization. You're not in your home. You're in a castle. And that smell? That's privilege. Let's back up. You're not a noble, obviously. But today you've been sent to help the steward's household. Maybe your mother bartered your labor for grain. Maybe it's part of some vague obligation your family owes to the manor. Either way, you're here, and you slept on the floor of a chamber that, by all medieval standards, is luxury incarnate. Only now do you realize just how strange noble sleep truly is? The chamber itself looks impressive by candlelight. Tapestries hang from stone walls, depicting lions and saints and the odd biblical scene of someone being eaten. Heavy curtains drape over narrow windows, blocking out the breeze that howls beyond. A canopy bed, yes, a real bed, sits on a dais like a throne, wrapped in layers of embroidered cloth and fur. But don't let it fool you. Everything in this room is rotting. The tapestries are dusty. The furs are crawling. The air is thick with something sour and chemical, likely chamber pot fumes marinated in centuries of ambition. You pull your tunic over your nose and sit up, trying to adjust to this new environment. The lord and lady sleep on that high bed, behind curtains thick enough to dampen even the most determined draft, and maybe even the occasional moan. Their snores drift out softly, a duet of power and indigestion. Between the bed and the door lies a scattering of servants. Like you, curled on rushes, cloaks, or, if you're particularly lucky, a bit of discarded velvet. Someone next to you rolls over and mutters in their sleep. The candle by the hearth flickers, casting a wavering light across the stone floor. You glance toward the far corner. The garderobe, a noble word for a glorified hole in the wall, looms there, partially curtained. You'd been warned. The stench wafts stronger now. A slurry of noble waste drops directly into the moat below, making it less a water defense and more of a slow-moving insult to the senses. No wonder the windows stay shut. You rise, stretching muscles stiff from stone sleep. Every joint cracks like dry bark. You shuffle toward the hearth, grateful for even a hint of warmth. One of the castle dogs is curled there, nose tucked under its tail, dreaming of meat it doesn't get to eat. Above you, the rafters groan. Not with wind, with rats. Because of course there are rats. There are always rats. Whether you're curled in a peasant's loft or sleeping under tapestries that cost more than your father's entire flock, the rats remain constant. They thrive in wealth. Especially when wealth drops crumbs and forgets them. You remember hearing a story once of a baron who awoke to find a rat chewing his ring finger, didn't even feel it, until the blood soaked through the sheet. They said he kept the ring, and the rat, as a warning. Historians still debate how luxurious noble sleeping arrangements truly were. On one hand, they had feather mattresses, imported linens, and bed curtains dyed with colors you've only seen in church murals. On the other hand, they slept in rooms with no sanitation, poor ventilation, and beds often shared with multiple people, including servants, concubines, or in desperate times, chickens. You find the nobleman's bed intimidating. It towers above the room, both in height and symbolism, and yet it's just as vulnerable. You remember the stories told in whispers? Lords stabbed in their beds by cousins with inheritance envy, ladies who poisoned their own pillows. One knight was said to have slept with a dagger under his back, just in case. Noble beds weren't for rest. They were thrones by night. Political stages, places of performance, negotiation, seduction, even surveillance. Some had peepholes hidden in their canopies, so guards or chaplains could monitor behavior under the veil of privacy. Comfort? That was secondary. You look up at the canopy now, dust falls. You're not surprised. There's movement at the door. You freeze. A knock? No. Just a shuffle. Someone relieving themselves too close to the door again? Possibly. You consider relocating to a spot farther from both the chamber pot and the exit, but your limbs have settled into a sort of resentful ache. You'll endure. You watch the nobleman shift behind the curtains. He groans softly. Not a sound of distress. Just digestion. You wonder what they eat that causes such nightly opera. Roasted quail stuffed with almonds? Spiced wine before bed? Eel pie? You, on the other hand, had a bowl of barley porridge and a pickled root. Luxurious in its own way. At least it doesn't sing back at you. Time passes slowly in a stone room. The cold doesn't seep in. It lives here. The fire offers little relief. You glance at the servants still curled nearby. One is mumbling. Another scratches at lice. Another is drooling onto what might once have been a velvet hem. You consider crawling back into your spot, but then you hear it. Drip! It's not raining. Drip! It's the garderobe. You choose a different patch of floor, trying not to gag. Welcome to noble life. Opulence and awful in the same breath. But here's the thing. It's still safer. For all the discomfort, the drafty stone, the midnight moans and chamber stench, you're protected. The castle is guarded. The walls are thick. The gates are shut. No wolves, no bandits, no sudden torchlight at the door. Just rats, dreams, and digestive unrest. And yet, despite all this grandeur, the nobleman's sleep is just as restless as yours. You hear him stir again. He mutters a name, not his wife's. The lady beside him flinches. You turn away. This is not your story to witness. Eventually, dawn bleeds in through the shutters. Just enough light to see the room in its full, grimy glory. The fire dies with a sigh. The dog wakes and yawns. You stretch again. Somehow it feels like you've aged 10 years overnight. You weren't comfortable, but you were warm, and for now that's enough. As the chamber begins to stir, and the household prepares for yet another round of forced politeness and unspoken tensions, you duck out quietly. Back to your world of goats, straw, and leaking roofs, where strangely you sleep better? Because at least when a pig snores next to you, it doesn't whisper secrets in the dark. The coughing starts before the light reaches the floor. You hear it before you even open your eyes. Wet, rhythmic, almost patterned in its misery. One of those sounds that nestles itself into the marrow of your bones and sits there. It's not the normal morning throat clearing or the occasional hack from straw dust. No. This is deep, heavy, alive, in the worst way. Someone's sick. You open your eyes and stare at the soot-stained rafters above. The sound is coming from across the room, maybe from the neighbor's side. It echoes through the thin wall like a bad omen wrapped in wood. Your stomach sinks. You already know what this is. It's the kind of cough that doesn't get better. You sit up slowly, no sudden moves, not because you're afraid of waking anyone, but because you're afraid of the sound your body might make, of the noise it might attract. Sickness doesn't move like wind or water. It slinks. It lingers. It waits. You wrap your shawl around your shoulders and step to the door. Open it just a crack. The air smells wrong. Not the usual. Not livestock or smoke or wet earth. This is sweeter. Clammy. Like wilted flowers floating in still water. You know this smell. It's the plague, or at least something like it. The whispers have already begun. Yesterday at the well, someone mentioned the miller's wife going cold in the night. The day before, the baker's apprentice vanished from morning roll call. And now this cough, filtering through the pre-dawn stillness, stitching itself into your nerves. You glance back into the room. Your family still sleeps, their faces soft in the warm glow of shared body heat. One of the children mumbles in their sleep. Something about rabbits. You say nothing. You just watch them a little longer. Memorize the rhythm of their breathing. Because now everything changes. You've heard the stories. Whole towns swept away like candle smoke. Corpses burned in trenches. People boarding up homes with the sick still inside. You never thought it would reach your village. Not here. Not this quiet bend in the road, where the sky always feels close and the stars stay steady. But it's here. Or it will be soon. You step outside fully now, wrapping your arms around yourself as the chill sneaks in through every fold. The neighbor's door is open, just a sliver. That's where the coughing came from. You know it without having to see. But you do see something else. A black cloth hanging from their door latch. It's not official, not yet. But it's the signal. The village has its ways. When someone gets sick, really sick, the cloth goes up. It's not to keep people out. It's to let them know the choice is theirs. Go in if you dare. You back away. Not from cowardice, though there's plenty of that. From instinct. A part of you buried deep in your spine that says, turn around now. Don't breathe too deep. Don't stay still for too long. You go back inside, close the door quietly. You don't tell the others, not yet. Instead, you do what medieval people always do in the face of unspoken dread. You prepare. Not with medicine because you don't have any. Not with soap because yours is made of lye and probably attracts more trouble than it repels. Not even with prayer, though that will come later. You clean. You sweep the floor. Stir the hearth. Push the sleeping dog out the door. He growls, but obeys. You whisper to the goat to stay quiet today. You set about boiling water, even though you're not entirely sure what for. Because if the sickness comes here, you want to be doing something when it does. Historians still argue whether medieval people understood contagion. Some say no, that they believed illness came from bad air or divine punishment. Others argue that behaviors prove otherwise. The quarantine zones, the cloth markers, the way people burned clothing and moved to the hills. Whether or not they knew the science, they knew enough to be afraid. Your mother wakes with a grunt, notices you're already dressed. You're going out? You shake your head. Not today. That's all you say. She nods, doesn't ask. She's already guessed. The day limps along. No one visits. Not even the old man with his gossip and broken teeth. The air feels still, like it's listening, watching, waiting. You tell the children to play quietly. Tell your sister to boil more water. You ask your mother to hang rosemary above the door, not because you believe it will stop the sickness, because it might slow your fear. Then, late in the afternoon, the bell rings. Not the monasteries. This one's duller, rustier. The village bell. The one that only tolls when something has happened. One toll, a pause. Another toll, someone's died. You don't have to ask who. You saw the cloth. You stay inside that night. No walk to the pasture? No lingering by the firewood pile? You don't even open the door again. You tell the kids it's just a cold night, that the wind's too sharp. You don't mention the cloth. You lie down in the dark, eyes open. And now sleep, the fragile thing it always is, becomes a war. Because now you fear what dreams might bring. Not demons, not witches, not spirits sitting on your chest, but silence, the kind that follows a cough. You listen to each breath around you. Count them. 1, 2, 3. Still alive. 1, 2, 3. Still warm. You drift for a while. You dream of rivers, of running, of breathless escape. But even in dreams, you feel it. The shadow, the black cloth, waiting at your door. And when you wake at the faintest crack of dawn, you realize something terrifying. You made it through the night, but someone else didn't. You leave the house just after sunrise, though nothing about the sky looks particularly bright. The clouds have arranged themselves in grim layers, thick as sheep's wool soaked in dirty water. It's the sort of day that smells like wet bark and old metal, like the world's been crying but refuses to talk about it. You've been sent on an errand. An excuse, really. A neighbor needs firewood. You need to get away. And so you go, axe strapped to your back, a hunk of bread in your coat pocket, and a vague sense of unease pacing beside you like a shadow. Your destination isn't the well-trod field or the familiar path that leads to the mill. No, you're headed for the forest, and you're going alone. Not that it's far. Just beyond the edge of the pasture, past the crooked fence and the ditch that always smells like turnips and regret. But once you pass the last standing stone, one that leans like it's trying to listen, you cross a threshold. The woods here aren't just trees. They're memory. They're warning. They're where the outlaws sleep. You enter the tree line slowly. The ground softens beneath your boots, turning from frost-hardened soil to leaf-littered silence. Every step you take is muffled, like the earth is trying to hush you. The canopy above blocks most of the light, giving everything a dusky, bruised tone, even though the sun's supposedly up. You glance back once, just once. Then you keep going. You've heard the stories. Everyone has. The forests are where justice ends and luck begins, where the king's laws don't stretch, and the church's eyes stop watching. Where exiles, escaped serfs, and lost soldiers carve lives out of moss and violence. The Greenwood, a place both romantic and ruinous. You press on, ears shop for sound. Birdsong? None. That's never good. The absence of birds means something else has claimed the space. A fox? Maybe. A boar? Worse? A man? Worse still. You come to a clearing. It's small, with a fallen oak resting like a corpse across the middle. You sit on it, letting your muscles rest. You're sweating despite the cold. The forest smells rich. Loam, rot, pine sap, and for a moment it's not frightening. It's just ancient. Alive in a way your village never feels. Then you see the ash ring? Barely there, beneath the leaves. Someone's built a fire here recently, not days ago, maybe last night. You kneel to inspect it. Charcoal still black. A twist of cloth, burned at the edges, half buried in the mud. You pick it up. It's greasy, possibly wool. Could have been a scarf, could have been a tourniquet, could have been both. You pocket it without thinking. You scan the trees, trying to be casual about it, trying not to let your pulse shout. There's no one that you can see. But out here, that means very little. You remember what old Yarrow used to say before he went senile. They sleep under thorn and bramble, with knives tucked where dreams ought to be. You thought he was talking about wolves. Now you're not so sure? Outlaws don't howl. They wait. They listen. They move with hunger and hollow eyes. Some are soldiers too long from war. Some are criminals with nowhere left to hide. Some are just people, like you, who ran once and never found a reason to stop. And in this forest, they live like ghosts in skin. You begin chopping wood. Slowly, methodically, each swing loud, intentional, a signal. I'm not sneaking. I'm just passing through. I'm not worth your knife. Each chop echoes too far, bounces between trees, comes back wrong, like someone else swung after you. You keep going. At some point, you hear a branch crack behind you. You freeze, axe mid-swing. Don't turn around too fast. Don't run. Don't speak. You wait. Nothing. A bird takes off from a nearby bush, startled. Maybe that's all it was. Maybe. You finish your bundle quickly after that. Tie it with twine, sling it across your back, and walk the long way back. Not because it's safer, because it's less expected. Along the way, you see more signs. A boot print. Small. Narrow. Pressed into the moss by someone who wasn't running but watching. A bit of rope tied between two trees at waist height. Not a trap. A marker. A path for someone who knows how to read it. You pass beneath it carefully. Eventually, the trees begin to thin. The light changes. You smell smoke. Not firewood, but hearths. Cooked onions. Home. You don't breathe easy yet. You reach the edge of the village and only then glance back. Just once. And you see them. Two figures, cloaked in brown and green, half covered in branches. Watching. Just far enough to disappear if you blink. But you don't. You nod. You're not sure why. They don't nod back. You return home. The firewood is accepted without comment. Your mother says, "You took long enough." And your brother asks if you saw any foxes. You say no. You keep the cloth scrap hidden in your coat. That night, sleep is different. You don't lie curled in fear. You lie alert. Not because you expect the outlaws to come, but because, for a moment out there, you understood them. They sleep in the cold. With nothing. Under trees that whisper. Among creatures who do not care who was noble or kind or generous once. They sleep with one eye open and one hand on their blade. They do not have lullabies or second sleeps or holy bells. But they do sleep, somehow. And in that forest, you learned something strange. Sometimes, the most peaceful sleep is had by those with nothing left to lose. It's feathered. It smells like lavender, wood smoke, and something faintly metallic. Coin, maybe. You sink into it slowly, unsure whether you're allowed to fully relax, or if the mattress will suddenly eject you like some class-conscious catapult. The fabric under you is real linen. Linen. You've never slept on anything so smooth that your skin actually sighs when it touches it. You're in a noble bed, and you don't belong here. This isn't your room, and this definitely isn't your bedding. But tonight, thanks to an odd turn of luck and a visiting uncle with just enough status to pull strings, you've been placed in a guest chamber for the night. One night only. One taste of the high life. Like a starving man handed a single roasted chestnut. The fire in the hearth burns clean. No stink of damp wood. The rushes on the floor are freshly laid, mixed with mint and sweet flag. The windows are real glass. Warped, yes, but glass nonetheless. Not that you can see out. Heavy curtains drown the room in velvety shadow. You lie very still, because the truth is, you're afraid to move. Not because of ghosts or creaking rafters, but because this much comfort feels unnatural. Suspicious. Like something's waiting to punish you for enjoying it. And yet part of you is enchanted. The featherbed molds to your shape. The blankets are warm without stifling. There's no goat stealing half your body heat or sister jabbing your ribs every time she rolls over. You're alone. That's the strangest part. Entirely, luxuriously alone. And still, you don't sleep. Because you can't shake the feeling that someone's watching, that someone knows you're here, wrapped in sheets you didn't earn, on a bed you weren't born to. That behind one of those carved panels on the wall, an eye peers through a tiny slit, judging. Waiting. You sit up, heart drumming. Nothing moves, but that doesn't mean it's safe. You think of the stories, not the ones told in the village, the ones whispered about nobles, of beds cursed by dying knights, of headboards that creak not from wood but from secrets stored in them, of royal children smothered with silk pillows so soft they stole breath like a kiss. You're probably being dramatic, but this place, it's too quiet. It doesn't breathe like a home. It doesn't shift and creak and mumble like a room full of bodies. It just waits. You lie back again, try to sleep. This time you close your eyes. It almost works, but then you remember, noble sleep doesn't come free. Because while you're on this miraculous featherbed, your mind is already working through the unspoken rules. Don't touch the jewelry box. Don't remove your boots in front of the wrong person. Don't sleep past the second bell. Don't die in the bed. Bad luck for the host. Yes, that last one's real. A superstition. You heard it from a washerwoman once. Nobles believe that if someone dies in the guest bed, the bed itself becomes cursed. Must be burned or passed on. Some say that's how war started once. Over a bed no one wanted to destroy, so you lie very still, very alive. And just as your body begins to yield to sleep again, the door creaks open. You don't move. It's slow, purposeful, the kind of creak that doesn't apologize. A figure enters, small, robed in gray. For a second, your heart seizes. Is this a ghost? A thief? A monk? Then you realize it's a servant, young, thin, almost part of the shadow. They move silently, crossing to the hearth. Add a log. Poke the coals. Adjust something near the window. Then they turn to you. For a second, you lock eyes. They nod barely and leave without a word. You exhale, realizing you've been holding your breath. Your hands ache from clenching the covers. You whisper a thank you, though you know they're already gone. Still now you are awake. Because here's the other side of noble sleep. Guilt. This isn't your place. You think of the people you know. Sleeping on damp straw beneath sagging thatch, coughing through soot and dreams. You think of your cousin, whose mattress is literally just a sack of old rags. And here you are, on Goose Down. You try not to feel ashamed, but you do. You wonder what the Lord dreams about in his own featherbed, if he even dreams at all. Maybe he's too tired from counting grain taxes and arguing over borders. Or maybe he dreams of assassins, of heirs who aren't loyal, of a wife who talks in her sleep. Nobles are always afraid of something. That's the thing they never tell you. Yes, they have roofs that don't leak, and food that doesn't rot in the bowl, and blankets so soft they make you forgive your enemies. But they also sleep with paranoia. You've heard it whispered. Some noblemen sleep with a dagger under their pillow. Some have hidden passages beneath their beds. Some force their servants to keep vigil through the night, just in case a rival slips poison into the wine, or a disgruntled cousin comes bearing a red-hot poker. Power doesn't breed peace. It breeds insomnia. Historians still debate whether noble sleep was better or worse. The beds? Yes, objectively superior. But the mental weight? The constant balancing act of favor and fear? That's another story. Eventually you drift off. It's not the deep, hay-muffled slumber of the family cottage. It's lighter, flickering, full of strange dreams, of rooms that shift shape, of voices speaking languages you don't understand, of shoes that walk without feet in them. You wake before dawn. The fire has gone low again. The sheets are twisted around your ankles. You sit up and stare at the door. Still closed, still safe, and yet all you want is to be home. Not because it's more comfortable, because at least there, the only thing watching you sleep is the goat. You push open the tavern door with your shoulder, arms wrapped tight around your own ribs. The door doesn't swing. It surrenders. The air that hits your face is hot, sour, and damp with stories. Sweat, spilled ale, and something that might once have been onions, now fermented into legend. The scent punches you, but you keep moving. Because tonight you're not here for the smell. You're here for a place to sleep. Barely inside, you're already scanning for space. There's no vacancy sign, no key on a ring, no fresh linens. What you get is floor. If you're lucky, straw. If you're very lucky, a corner not already claimed by a snoring mass of someone else's boots and regrets. You head for the hearth. That's always the warmest spot. Unfortunately, it's also the most coveted. Tonight, a trader from the south has claimed it, curled up like a cat with his hat pulled low and one hand resting on his coin pouch. Around him lie others, a peddler, two drovers, a boy clutching a broken flute, and a woman whose breath whistles with each exhale. You find a patch of floor that looks only slightly damp and sit. It's not the worst spot you've ever had. The tavern hums with the last vestiges of drunken energy. A few men argue about pig prices near the bar. A bard tries to tune his lyre, unsuccessfully. Someone stumbles into a chair, then promptly uses it as a bed. The fire spits in the hearth like it's offended. You rest your back against the wall and exhale. This is how so many travelers sleep, shoulder to shoulder with strangers, heads on sacks or bundled cloaks, the floor your only mattress. And that straw? It's itchy. It moves when you don't. The tavern keeper insists he changes it weekly. Everyone knows that's a lie. Still, it's shelter. It's warmth. It's technically a roof. You tuck your bag under your legs. You learned early. Never use it as a pillow. That's how it disappears. The man beside you snores with the passion of a man who has fought and lost against his own nose. You inch away. A little. Not enough to offend, just enough to avoid inhaling his second-hand dreams. Someone opens the door again. A blast of cold air sweeps in, along with a new figure. Tall, hooded, wrapped in travel mud. All heads glance, just briefly, enough to determine threat level. Satisfied, they return to their drinks, dice, and sleep. You pull your cloak tighter. Tavern sleep is a peculiar kind. It's not rest, it's pause. Because in this place, sleep is borrowed, not earned. You close one eye, maybe both, but never your ears. The man beside you might roll over and take your belt. The girl across the room might be counting heads for her own reasons. The barkeep's muttering to his wife again about rats. You're not sure if that's a metaphor or a pest problem. There's always a fire in the corner of your brain. A little voice that says, "Don't sleep too deep," because taverns are crossroads. Not just for travelers, but for information, for secrets, for problems. And people bring those problems inside with them, tucked under cloaks like hidden daggers. Historians still debate how widespread this communal inn-sleeping really was. Some argue it was common only in poorer regions where infrastructure was minimal. Others insist it was the norm across Europe. But either way, the reality is this. You're sleeping in a room full of strangers. You don't know what they've done, who they are, what they're running from, and more importantly, what's following them. You shift your weight. A flea bites your ankle. You slap at it half-heartedly. You think about the last tavern you stayed in, the one where someone disappeared in the night. No one spoke about it in the morning. The empty spot on the floor was just accepted. Part of the game. Another roll of the dice. You drift just a little. Your head leans back against the wall. Your eyes flutter. The bard finally gives up on his tuning and hums a lullaby instead. It's off-key but kind. Key, but you almost fall asleep. Then you feel it. Someone brushes against your foot. You jolt upright, heart kicking. But it's just a dog. Old, half-blind, wandering between sleepers in search of warmth or crumbs. He noses your boot and moves on. Your breath slows. You lie back down. Not because it's comfortable. It isn't. The straw pokes through your tunic. Your neighbor just coughed something wet. The fire is too far away, and the window is letting in a breeze with the temperament of an angry ghost. But you're exhausted. You fold your arms, close your eyes again, and tell yourself, just a few hours, just until dawn. And maybe you even dream of fields, of bread, of your own bed, of silence. Until a chair crashes. A man shouts. You snap awake. A scuffle near the bar. Words slurred, fists raised, wine spilled. The innkeeper barks something. The fight fizzles like a storm that lost interest. One of the combatants is dragged to the door and shoved into the night. The tavern door slams shut, and all is still again. Except your heartbeat. Except your sleep, now gone, skittish, like a bird startled from a branch. You sit there, rubbing your eyes, trying to coax sleep back. Eventually it returns. Cautious, shallow, dreamless. And in the morning, when the fire has gone out and the floor is cold, you rise, soar, and leave without saying a word. No one does. Because tavern sleep doesn't come with good mornings. Just the faint, bitter aftertaste of having survived another night in someone else's shadow. You hear it before you feel it. A low rumble. So deep it seems to come from the ground itself. Not thunder, not hooves. Something slower, broader. A sound that doesn't strike but seeps. You sit up, straw clinging to your cheek. The others are stirring too. One of the children yawns. The old woman mumbles something about deep belly water. Outside, the rooster crows and cuts off halfway, as if suddenly unsure of himself. Then the trembling begins. Just a ripple at first. Barely enough to tip over the half-empty bucket in the corner. But you see the water inside it vibrate, ringed with tiny waves, disturbed, not from above, but below. The dog barks, once, twice, and then bolts out the door without waiting for permission or breakfast. You follow, squinting into the dawn. The air feels strange, damp in a way that suggests not rain but rise. And then, just beyond the thatched edge of your world, you hear the full voice of it. The river is coming. Not in a friendly, burbling, poetic sort of way. Not with reeds swaying and fish jumping. No, this is the kind of river movement that makes your blood step back. It's flooding. You run toward the bank, feet slapping on slick mud. And there it is. A wall of brown, fast-moving water that has broken its usual chain of banks and stones. It has decided today is the day it wants more. More space, more land, more sleep. Because make no mistake, when rivers flood, sleep is the first casualty. Back at the house, panic is already starting. Your father's lifting up sacks. Your sister's pulling the goat onto a cart like she's done this before, which she has. You're throwing straw and whatever you can carry onto higher shelves. Though everything already smells like wet bark and future rot, the water won't reach to you right away. Not unless it gets truly greedy. But it's already licking the road. Already poking into the pasture like a child testing boundaries. You know what this means? Tonight, you won't sleep. Or if you do, you'll do it perched on furniture, one ear open, one eye squinting at the door, watching for the moment when the water crosses the threshold like an uninvited guest. This isn't your first flood, won't be your last, but it's always different, always dangerous. Because when the river rises, everything else becomes unstable. The earth shifts. Rats flee their holes. The animals grow skittish. Even the wind changes its tune. Less howl, more hiss. And the people? They start to look at one another like someone must have angered a saint. You hear it murmured already. The blacksmith's wife, pressing a rosary to her lips, mutters about sins washing clean. The baker's apprentice says he saw a black cat drink from the river yesterday. Maybe a sign. Superstition swirls faster than the current. Historians still argue how much of medieval flooding was predicted versus endured. Some point to complex water calendars, and saints' feast days used to track seasonal tides. Others say most floods simply arrived, unapologetic and full of ruin. Either way, peasants like you never have time to prepare properly. You're always half ready, half expecting, half asleep. By midday, the outer fields are underwater. The hens are trapped on a stump like noble women in distress. The pig keeps trying to swim, even though the water's barely up to its haunches. You build a barricade from barrels and crates, knowing it won't stop anything. But it's something. And right now, something is enough to keep fear at bay. Night falls like a trapdoor, and with it comes the waiting. You eat standing up. Cold bread, boiled roots, the last of the dried berries. No one talks much. The fire burns low, not from lack of fuel, but caution. If the water rises too high, you don't want an ember dancing loose across wet wood. You settle in, but no one really lies down. It's more a hovering. You prop yourself on the table. Someone else sits on a barrel. The old woman curls onto a shelf like a cat, somehow asleep already, her hand still clutching a string of beads. The dog's nose is pressed to the door, ears twitching with every creak. And then the rain begins. Soft at first, then stronger. You feel the water before you see it. A cold kiss at your toe. It's breached the door. Not a wave, not a torrent, but a quiet push. Like it's announcing itself politely before tearing through the floor. You jump up, grab the candle, shout for the others. Buckets are placed, blankets lifted. The fire is doused. And now, finally, no one pretends sleep is coming. You sit on the loft platform, knees tucked to your chest, as water claims the floor. A dark mirror spreads beneath you, reflecting the ceiling like a haunted pond. The table legs disappear into the brown. The goat mutters softly beside you. You stroke its fur, not for comfort, but for reality. Something warm, something solid. The room smells like fear and mold, and you realize something. Silence has weight. No one speaks. No one snores, no coughing, no prayers. Just the soft sound of floodwater shifting in the dark. You close your eyes. Sleep becomes a negotiation. You tell yourself, I'll nap for 10 minutes, then check the water, then another 10. But 10 becomes 20. Then a dream. You're floating, not swimming, just suspended, like the world is water and you're neither drowning nor breathing. And in this dream, you hear voices beneath the surface, not speaking, chanting, the same 5 notes, over and over. You try to dive, but the water pushes you back. You wake with a start. Someone dropped a pan. The water hasn't risen higher, but it hasn't gone down either. And that's what truly haunts you, because the waiting is worse than the wave. The stillness, the not knowing, the not sleeping. Eventually, morning breaks. Not with sun, but with fog. The water begins to pull back, inch by muddy inch. The walls drip. The floor reveals itself, sticky and rank. You step down into it, bare feet squelching. Your home didn't drown, but you haven't truly slept in over a day. And tonight, when the water's gone and the hearth burns again, and the goat finally settles, and the blankets are laid back on damp beds, you still won't sleep easily, because rivers remember. And so do you. The night begins with a whisper, not the usual kind. Wind through thatch, mouse in the grain bin, dog chasing dream rabbits. No, this one is different. It's human, garbled. Half a name maybe, or a string of words that don't belong together. You freeze where you are, halfway through laying down your blanket. You glance around the dim room. The fire's low but alive, casting gold against the walls. Everyone's in their usual spots. No one's speaking. And yet, there it is again, muffled, strange. You look toward the back corner where your cousin lies. He's propped halfway on his elbow, but his eyes are shut. His mouth is open, moving, muttering. You inch closer. Don't take the bread, left side, red stones, they saw me. Nonsense. Dream talk. You know the look. A kind of slackness in the limbs and inwardness in the face. Like the dream has pulled the person halfway out of the world but forgot to take the body with it. It's unsettling. But that's just the start. Later in the night, you wake to the creak of a floorboard. Not the fire, not the wind. Footsteps. You sit up. It's your cousin again, sleepwalking. He's across the room, barefoot, eyes glassy. His hands are clasped as if in prayer or grief. He walks in small circles, mumbling about a basket. Then he turns and heads for the door. You move fast, catch him just before he lifts the latch. His skin is ice. He doesn't fight you, but he doesn't acknowledge you either. You guide him back, slowly, like leading a goat through fog. Once he's down, he falls instantly into a breathy, shallow sleep, as if nothing happened. No one else wakes. You sit there, staring at him, heart pounding. You don't sleep the rest of the night, because this isn't the first time, and it's not just him. There's something in the village lately, an unease that blooms after dark. A boy down the lane keeps waking with dirt on his feet. Says he dreams of digging. A girl at the edge of the forest talks in her sleep, loud, clear, arguing with someone no one else hears. And 2 nights ago, the shepherd's wife walked out into the frost barefoot and didn't come back till morning. She had no memory, but she smelled of smoke and said her hands hurt. You begin to wonder, what if sleep isn't safe anymore? Not because of what enters your home, but because of what leaves it. You've heard the tales, everyone has, about the sin eaters, figures who appear by moonlight, sometimes in dreams, sometimes beside the dying. They don't speak. They just consume. Bread placed on a corpse's chest, wine dripped across their lips, taken in by a silent stranger paid in whispers and fear. But some say the sin eaters never left, that they walk among the healthy, drawn to the guilt that festers inside sleeping minds. That sometimes, when you sleep, you become one. Not because you choose to, but because your soul gets tired of waiting for you to change. Historians still argue whether sin eating was ever truly widespread, or simply a regional ritual misunderstood by outsiders. Some think it was just symbolic, a way to comfort grieving families. Others believe it was a real, terrifying practice meant to cleanse the spiritual ledger, to give someone a clean slate at someone else's cost. You don't know what to believe. But tonight, your cousin's eyes didn't look like his, and that's enough. You keep watch. All night, you sit beside him while he sleeps. You light another candle. You whisper the old family prayer your grandmother taught you, the one about anchoring your spirit so it doesn't wander too far. In the morning, when he wakes, you say nothing. He doesn't remember. Of course he doesn't. But he looks tired. Like he's lived through something you can't explain. He scratches his arms like they itch from inside. He doesn't meet your eyes, just mutters something about a bad dream. Then he eats. And you notice he's hungrier than usual. You all eat the same, more or less. A bit of bread, some beans, maybe a sliver of fatback if it was a lucky hunting week. But he eats twice what he normally does. Licks his fingers, looks around for more. You wonder, is he trying to replace something? Or is something else still feeding? That night, you don't let the fire die. You sit awake again. Not because you fear him, but because you don't know what he might bring back. You think about what it means to carry someone else's burden, their guilt, their shame, their unspoken wrongs. You think of your own dreams, of the time you saw a face in the mirror that wasn't yours, of the whisper that told you the fire wanted to spread. You haven't told anyone that. Maybe someone else ate that sin for you. Maybe your cousin. Maybe that's why he keeps walking at night. Guided not by dreams, but by weight. You resolve to stay awake again tomorrow, and the next night, and maybe all the nights after. Because if someone has to watch the sleepers, let it be someone who still dreams in their own voice. The moon is full tonight, not just bright enough to burn. It pours through the shutters in streaks of cold silver, painting the floorboards with long, crooked shadows. You lie awake, blanket up to your chin, staring at the ceiling while your brain taps you on the shoulder and whispers, "It's going to be one of those nights." And sure enough, it is. The first thing you notice, before anything else, is that the dog won't lie still. He paces the room in loops, nails clicking on the wood, sniffing at corners, whining under his breath like something's coming but he can't figure out from where. You hiss at him to settle. He doesn't. Eventually, he sits by the door and growls softly. Not menacing, but uneasy. Like he knows something's off and resents having to be the only one who does. You glance at your brother, curled up in the corner. He's still. For now. But the moonlight reaches all the way across the room and touches his face like a hand that's been waiting for the right moment. Outside, an owl calls. Once, twice, then silence, and then laughter. Low, distant, wrong. It floats through the night like smoke. You bolt upright, not just because someone's laughing at this hour, but because you recognize that laugh. It's your neighbor, the one who never smiles, the one who hasn't left her home in days, the one who buried her third child just last month. And now she's giggling under the full moon. You grab your cloak and slip outside, careful not to make a sound. The village is silver blue under the moonlight. Every building seems taller, the shadows longer. You pass the mill, its wheels still for once. You pass the well, where something seems to shimmer just below the surface, and then you hear it again. Howling, not a wolf, not quite human, something in between. You freeze. It's not just one voice. It's several. Rising together, not in harmony, but in shared intensity. From different corners of the village, from rooftops, from windows, you see someone standing on a cottage roof, arms outstretched, head thrown back, mouth wide. A man. His nightshirt billows like wings. He doesn't see you. He doesn't see anything. His face is a blank canvas, painted only with moonlight and madness. You hurry back inside, bolt the door, slide a chair under the handle for good measure. The dog whimpers now and crawls under the table. You join him, because you've heard the stories of the moon mad, of people who lose their minds when the sky grows full, who walk without remembering, who scream things they don't understand, who wake covered in mud and blood and sometimes worse. And it always happens under the full moon. Historians still argue about this phenomenon. Some say it's superstition, blame placed on lunar cycles to explain mental illness, seizures, night terrors. Others point to the pattern, the timing, the coincidences that keep piling up. But you're not arguing with scholars tonight. You're hiding from your neighbors because you know them in the daylight. You know their names. You've shared stew and stories and fields with them. But tonight, you don't recognize the woman moaning near the chapel gate, or the boy skipping circles in the mud, eyes rolled back, singing a song no one taught him. And worst of all, you hear your own mother whispering to the moon. Not praying, whispering. You press your ear to the wall and catch fragments. "It's not mine, take it back." Never dug the second grave. "I gave him salt, I swear." You pull away, heart thudding. She's asleep. You're sure of it. Lying in the corner with her back to the room, blanket pulled up to her ears. But her mouth moves. Her fingers twitch. And the moon touches her like it has permission. You don't sleep, you can't. Instead, you wait. Listen, count the howls. The door rattles once. You don't check. At some point near dawn, everything stops. Like the night has exhaled. The howling ends. The voices go quiet. And the moon, satisfied, slips behind the hills. You finally close your eyes. Not to sleep, exactly, but to signal that the nightmare is done, for now. In the morning, the village doesn't speak of it. They never do. You mention the laughter to your neighbor. He says he didn't hear anything. You ask the baker about the figure on the roof. He laughs it off, says you must have dreamt it. Even your mother looks confused when you mention her midnight whispers. She frowns and touches your face. Maybe you were dreaming, dear, but you weren't. And you're not the only one who knows it. That afternoon, you spot the dog digging a shallow hole behind the house. Inside it, a handful of rosemary, a stone wrapped in thread, a splinter of bone, charms, wards, precautions. You bury them again without telling anyone. And that night, you sleep in the middle of the room, away from the windows, with a mirror under your pillow, just like the old crone said, because the full moon will return. And next time, you're not sure sleep will be the only thing it comes for. You light the candle with shaking hands. It's nearly gone, a stub drowning in its own wax, but it will have to do. The fire in the hearth is just ashes now, cold, gray, scattered like the remnants of someone's breath. You're the last one awake. Well, the last one trying to stay awake, because tonight, sleep feels too uncertain, too much like trust. And trust lately is in short supply. You take out the small wooden box from beneath the bed, careful not to let it creak. Inside, wrapped in linen and tucked between dried sage and lavender, lies your most precious object, a relic. Or at least that's what you've been told. It's a bone, small, weathered, no bigger than your thumb joint. Your grandmother insisted it was from a saint. Saint Alrona, protector of sleepers and wayfarers, she'd said, holding it up like it was a key to the divine. Whether it truly belonged to a holy martyr or simply to a particularly pious rat, you never asked. You didn't want to know. What matters is that, for a while it worked. When you placed the relic under your pillow, your dreams quieted. The rats avoided you. The fire never smoked you awake. Even your cousin, still plagued by his midnight wanderings, left you alone. But lately it feels different, like the relic has stopped listening. Or worse, like it's tired too. You press it to your forehead. Whisper the prayer again. 4 lines, the ones you've known since you had milk teeth. Your lips move automatically, but in your chest something wavers. Not doubt, just weariness. You place the relic on the table beside the candle and sit cross-legged, trying not to think about the sounds from outside. There's been coughing again. New voices this time. Not the neighbor. Further, maybe the blacksmith's family. Maybe the Thatchers. And then there's the girl in the square who hasn't spoken in days. Just sits by the well, fingernails digging crescents into her own palms. The village is fraying. Not quickly, but enough that you notice. And through it all, sleep has become something whispered about. Not just in fear, but in longing. Like an old friend gone distant, people speak of restful nights like they're relics too. You glance at yours again. Still there. Still inert. You blow out the candle. Climb into bed. You lie still. The blankets are heavy with damp. Not from water, but from memory. From all the nights spent tossing, freezing, waiting. Your body doesn't know how to relax anymore. Your breath keeps hitching, as if afraid the next inhale might invite something in. Because for all its comforts, sleep in this world is never just rest. It's a gamble. And tonight, you feel the odds stacking against you. You press your palm to the wall beside your bed. It's warm. Odd. The fire's been out for hours. No lanterns nearby. But the stone radiates. You lean closer. And then you hear it. A hum. Soft, low, like a chant just below hearing. You snatch back your hand. Not because it's painful, but because it recognized you. You sit up in bed, heart pounding. It takes you a long time to lie down again. And when you do, you don't close your eyes. Instead, you look up at the rafters, and you remember. You remember the stories about how saints never truly sleep. About how relics, when displeased, grow restless. About how one boy found his entire pillow stained red, and not from blood, but from petals. Roses, they said. Blooming from his mouth? A miracle, if you believe that sort of thing. You try to believe. You whisper the prayer again. But the words stick in your throat. Outside, the wind picks up. It sings through the gaps in the wall like a choir of teeth. The shutters rattle. You imagine them opening, just a crack, and something slipping through, something that doesn't knock. You reach for the relic. It's gone. You panic, sit upright, throw back the covers. Then you see it, still on the table. Only it's moved. Slightly. Not far, but enough. You stare. You don't touch it. Not now, because whatever that bone holds, saint or spirit or something unnamed, it is not sleeping either. You lie back down slowly. hands folded over your chest like the statues in the church. You don't close your eyes. You listen to the wind, to your own breath, to the heartbeat of something sacred or possibly cursed beside you. And you wonder, when sleep becomes a prayer, what answers you in return? It's still dark. That strange lingering dark just before the sky considers softening. But something feels off. You sit up. The rooster hasn't crowed. You rub your eyes, certain you've missed it. That you overslept. But no, the fire hasn't been stoked. The shutters are still closed. No clatter of pans. No hiss of water over embers. Just quiet, dense and strange, like the air has thickened. And the rooster, whose shriek usually cuts through everything like a sword? Silent. You rise and wrap the blanket around your shoulders, your feet cold against the dirt floor. Everyone else is still asleep, which is odd. There's usually at least one snorer by now, or someone muttering about blisters and oatmeal. But they lie still. Too still. You walk to the door and open it just a crack. Outside, nothing. No movement, no morning mist, no sound from the trees or birds or carts. Even the wind has taken the day off. The world looks paused, like someone forgot to hit play. And then the thought hits you, silly and slow. What if the day forgot to come? You know that's impossible. You know it. But as you step outside and see the same stars in the same spots they occupied hours ago, a chill creeps into your bones deeper than the cold. Something isn't right. You walk the perimeter of the house. Check the sky. The horizon is as black as the sky above. You glance up at the moon. Full, fat, exactly where it shouldn't be anymore. You whisper, maybe it's just cloudy. But it's not. The stars are visible, the sky is clear. But the sun is late, or lost, or something worse. You walk to the next house. No lights, no smoke, no movement. You knock gently, then louder. No answer. You step inside. They're asleep, all of them. Breathing, yes, but barely. Their skin looks pale in the moonlight. You call out. No one stirs. You shake the eldest man by the shoulder. His eyes flutter but do not open. His lips move slightly, like he's speaking in a dream he's not in charge of. You back away, leave the house, step out into a village frozen in slumber. And now, for the first time, you are afraid to go back to sleep. You think of the relic. The bone on your table. The prayer that wouldn't come. You walk the streets. Past the mill. Past the chapel. Doors ajar. No light, no fire, just silence. And then, on the edge of the green, you see it. The rooster, standing tall, beak open, silent, mouth frozen mid-crow. It's alive, barely. Breathing but stiff. You approach slowly. It blinks once, slow and strange, like time has become syrup. Then it closes its eyes and does not open them again. You whisper, enough! You turn and run. Back home. To the bed. To the relic. To the place where sleep used to end and morning used to begin. You grab the relic, wrap it in cloth, and press it to your heart. You close your eyes and whisper every prayer you know. The ones your mother taught you. The ones you made up. The ones that sound like begging. And finally, sleep takes you. But it feels different now. Not like drifting. Not like descent. Like surrender. And when you wake, you hear birds. You hear your brother coughing, the baby cooing, the old woman asking for tea, and the rooster crowing with all the arrogance in the world. You stumble to your feet, throw open the shutters, light. The sun is up. Everything is normal. Everyone says they slept deeply. Too deeply. You don't speak of what you saw. You simply place the relic back in its box. And that night, when you sleep, it is dreamless. For the first time in weeks. Because now you understand. Sleep, in the medieval world, was not just rest. It was a threshold. And every night you stepped to its edge. Sometimes something looked back. But tonight it lets you pass. Now close your eyes. Let the noise of that world fade. Wooden shutters creaking, river water murmuring under floorboards, firelight whispering in the dark. Picture the candle beside you, flickering down to its final inch. The straw mattress softens. The room breathes with you. You've seen so much tonight. Noble chambers and flood-soaked cottages, forests hiding lawless dreamers, relics that remember what you forget. You've walked with goats and ghosts, shared warmth with pigs, and stories with strangers. You've slept light, listened deep, and drifted across the centuries. And through it all, you've made it. Whatever chased you back then, wolves, coughs, midnight whispers, none of it's here now. Just your breath, steady. Just the quiet hum of the dark. Nothing else. No rattling latch, no scratching behind the wall, just stillness. The moon is gentle again. The stars indifferent in the best way. And sleep? Sleep is just sleep now. Not a trap. Not a test. Let your muscles sink. Let your jaw go slack. Unfurl like a tired banner, at last able to rest. The stories are over. The saints are silent. Even the rooster's gone back to bed. You're safe. You're home. And it's time to let go. End of script, sweet dreams.